All right, let's get started. Greetings and welcome to the third and final day of the 2022 Neustadt Lit Fest. My name is Daniel Simon, and it is my great privilege to serve as the editor-in-chief of World Literature Today magazine here at the University of Oklahoma, which sponsors the Neustadt Prizes. Hello to all the teachers, students, colleagues, and friends here at OU, and we welcome those of you who are watching this live stream from around the world. The Black and Blues Dance Project, based on a prose poem by our 2022 Neustadt Prize laureate, Boubacar Boris Diop, was made possible in part by grants from the Norman Arts Council, the National Endowment for the Arts. The text appears in a collection called Mediterranean, published by Warscapes and translated by Bhakti Sringarpur. At the end I should note, of course, that we have the co-creator and choreographer of the film here, Marie Casimir, who is with us today. And the two principal dancers, Victoria Correa and Nate Tyler, and they will take part in a talkback after the premiere. So I'm really excited to welcome them and to hear them talk about their vision for the film. At the end of the talkback, following the premiere, I will ask those of you who are 18 and older to fill out the Arts and Economic Prosperity Survey, which is being conducted by Americans for the Arts in partnership with the Norman Arts Council to measure the economic and cultural impact of the arts in the city of Norman. It's a 3-minute survey that you can fill out on your smartphone or by using pen and paper. So we'll project a QR code up on the screen. You can get the code on your smartphone, fill out the survey that way, or we also have paper surveys that some of our students will pass around after the talkback. You can fill it out that way as well. It's really important to have that feedback for future arts events in the city of Norman. Thank you so much. And now, World Literature Today and the Neustadt Festival present the world premiere of Black and Blues.
If only you dared to open your arms.
Facing the cold surging winds, and yet be able to think of the desert.
If only you dare
If
to
only
open your
you dare
eyes.
to open your eyes.
The village has been depleted of its men folk.
Before. What exactly does this word mean? It was such a long time ago. In a previous life. Today, it's hard to think there was a time when boats weren't possessed by the sea. A time when they symbolized life, not death.
Well, Marie and Victoria and Nate are coming down. I might just say that I will introduce them, of course, and also recognize Jessica Caris-Ray, who's the co-director of the film, who couldn't be here today. She works at Lincoln Center by day. So, and Ioannis Andriotis, the sound design and audio production specialist, is here with us as well. So I will introduce our panelists, and they will talk a little bit about their vision for the film. And I'll start with Marie. Marie Casimir brings 13 years of experience and a passion for engaging artists and community members across imaginary borders, both geographic and social, through art. She is an arts administrator, producer, multidisciplinary performing artist, and educator, and she currently serves as curator of public programs and performance at Oklahoma Contemporary. Marie received a Heartland Emmy nomination for I Dream of Greenwood, her most recent collaboration with World Literature Today, and also choreographed the Women Like Us performance based on Edwidge Danticat's work for the 2018 Neustadt Lit Fest. Victoria Correia in the middle is originally from Brazil and graduated from the Bolshoi Theater School of Brazil in 2020. Her first work experience was at Junior Company Bolshoi, Brazil. Besides ballet, contemporary dance and Brazilian regional dances are also part of her stage experiences. During her first year as a ballet performance major at the University of Oklahoma, she performed in the Oklahoma Festival Ballets Sleeping Beauty and Strand by Robin Mineko. Nathaniel Tyler, on the right, is a graduate dance performance major from the University of Central Oklahoma. He is trained in classical ballet, jazz, and modern dance. He has also been trained in African dance, Bharatanatyam, and even aerial dance. Nate presented his own choreographic work at 2 collegiate conferences and at the National Conference of Undergraduate Research when he was at UCO. He currently teaches across the Oklahoma City and Edmond area in hip-hop, modern, contemporary, jazz, and ballet. Welcome to our panel. Marie, would you like to say a few words to start about the adaptation and the text, perhaps, and whatever else you would like to share about your vision for Black and Blues?
Sure, thank you. I just realized I'm not. Okay, hello. Thank you so much, Daniel. Appreciate those introductions and kind words. I want to start off with thank you to World Literature Today for the opportunity to work with these wonderful dancers and create this work. Thank you to Daniel Simon and to R.C. Davis. And also, yeah, maybe we need to stay away from each other. And a deep admiration for Mr. Diop for writing this gorgeous piece from which we pulled inspiration from to create the work. And then I also want to thank Jessica Ray, who is my co-director, who began as an artistic coordinator, but as we worked together, she really helped to shape the work and shape the piece, and flew out from New York to be in Oklahoma with us to work on the piece. So thank you so much to Jessica Ray, to our DP Jordan Nix, and also to Yanis Andredes, who is our composer, who's here with us today, who's a wonderful collaborator. Those are all my thank yous. So when I first read the piece, Black and Blues, I was really overcome and transported by the words that were on the page. There's so much sense memory that's in the piece. So for me, I felt transported either to the shores of Senegal. I could smell, or perhaps somewhere else close by. I could smell the sea. I could see the glass, the bits of glass on the ground. I could smell the drying fish on the ocean. I could hear the market sounds. And all of that sounded really familiar, although I've never been to Senegal and set foot on the shores, but my birthplace is Haiti. And so I know what the shores and the marketplace of Haiti look like and sound like and smell like. And so it felt like a sense memory as opposed to a place I had never been before. And I intimately connected with this idea of having to leave your home place, because I come from a family of immigrants where we were separated. My family was separated via immigration. My parents and myself and my 2 sisters were separated from my 3 brothers. They had to make that choice in the 80s during the Duvalier era. And so I instantly connected with this piece of text, the idea of separation. And in this case, we may not have had a perilous journey, but the feeling of love and loss is quite the same. So with that, I wanted to approach the text from the idea of love and loss, knowing that intimately, perhaps not loss of life, but loss of physical proximity to the person you love. And so much of what we see in terms of the stories of migrants in film, as well as on television, we usually see people in their darkest hours stranded on a beach somewhere. And in the case of Monsieur Diop's piece, he mentions Lampedusa, right, an island off the coast of Italy where a lot of people, a lot of migrants from West Africa and North Africa end up in limbo, in this in-between space. Or for Haitians on the shore of Miami, or crossing the Del Rio, right? Or for Mexican migrants, brown migrants on the border. And so I wanted to look at it, what happens before and what happens after. There's a really great section of the text that says before, what exactly does that word mean that we used in this piece. So this idea of like memory, like and also like placing the work in the before and after the life of the person who has to leave, but also the person that's left, the families that are left behind. And the case of the text, the women that are left behind who have to continue on. And what that does to a village, what that does to a town, like perhaps there's an emptiness, and just having to move on. So that's a lot, but those are all some of the things I was thinking about in beginning to make the piece. Because we began with the text in our process, and I'm going to have the dancers talk a little bit about the process, I just want to share a few pieces of text that stood out that really informed process. The sea, with its cruel double standards, devours the bodies as much as it nurtures them. So the idea of water as life-giving and life-taking. Again, before, what exactly does that word mean? And in the pictures, only the women's eyes don't have a faraway look. I'll talk a little bit more about that later. And so those are some of the texts and movements that we began with to establish, get a footing into the world. Our adaptation, right? We weren't trying to we didn't recreate the piece. As I shared, I started with my own personal immigrant journey and what love and loss feels like, and not just my own personal journey, but by watching my parents. And so the text about the women don't have a faraway look, I started with the idea of looking at my mother growing up without her sons, or me growing up without my brothers, and with her without her sons, and looking at her face, and sometimes seeing something that would look really stoic, and really like she just, just keeping on. And other times you could see a really deep pain on her face, or my father's face, but nothing is said, right? It's like it's all on the face, and just in the quiet moments, you can feel the loss. And so I shared that story with the dancers about the separation, and then we began to talk about just family and connection, and also vulnerability, like what makes us really vulnerable. And so I want to start there. Yeah. Yeah. Can you, Victoria, you want to say hello?
Yes. All the process, it was super fast, the process that we have. It happened super quickly, and it was super intense because I didn't know either my year or Nate. So we had to get to know each other, to get to know each other's bodies, to dance together, and keep the dressing of the test. So we had to put all our thoughts about the test all together to translate it for our body language. And it was a really good process. Yes.
Yeah, so I think similar to what Victoria said, we had to get to know each other's bodies very quickly. This was actually my first time meeting Victoria in person. So we had never danced together. We do very different styles and just trying to get used to one another. And even there's a lot of eye connection that you can see in the film. So obviously, you don't wake up every day staring someone in the eyes. So that was new and something that we had to get used to, but it was actually very easy to get along with Victoria. She made this process very easily, and with the direction of Jessica and both Marie, they gave us a lot of sensory details to think about, and we had to keep in mind that we were not recreating the text, we were making our own story, and also keep in mind like some of these shots are here in Oklahoma, like we're not on an actual beachfront as well. Also dancing on sand is much harder than you think, so just keep those things in mind. But no, it was a great process and project, and we have to work at a very high pace as well. I'm not the best swimmer, and so some of those shots in water we had to really calm ourselves, because as soon as you get into water, your body can really start to hyperventilate, and that's what sort of makes you sink and go crazy. But a lot of deep breaths and a lot of coaching as well is what kind of helps get what you see as a final product.
Thank you, guys. Can you talk about when we began our partner work, which was really important because we were trying to tell this love story, right? But also, I gave you like certain prompts to think about. So in addition to like trying to build that connection, can you talk about how you were able to like build trust with each other in terms of like the partner work? Because a lot of it was improvisation. And so we created the work through improvisation, and that we added lifts. And so can you all talk about how you were able to build trust, or what that partnering process was like?
Sure. So I'm a male dancer, if you can't tell. I am pretty used to having to lift people and pick up someone's weight and transfer them, whether it be in a lift or a group setting. But what was different in this situation is we wanted it to be very seamless and innate or natural, with a lot of the movements and a lot of the transitions that we were creating. So it took a lot of, it all started really with eye contact first, and then it started with sort of like following each other's hands, and then eye contact additional as well. So there was a lot of like give and take, and so we were truly dancing as partners, and I think it allowed us to sort of shape some of the movements that you see that we couldn't have done if we were like 5, 6, 7, 8. So that's what was really interesting, is that a lot of, like Marie said, a lot of the material that you see when Victoria and I are dancing together is all improv, and it was all shots that we just sort of started again with that basic eye contact and sort of trust there, because if I was like laughing, or if she was laughing, there wasn't the same connection or trust, and it was more likely that we were to hurt each other. And so I think keeping that in mind, that we had each other's bodies and like health in our own hands. So just wanted to respect that and keep that trust there as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, as Nate said, I'm also a dancer, so I'm kind of used to be lifted, but it's different when we are in an improv, because we are more vulnerable, and building this, especially with eye contact, it was super important. I think it was the major point that we felt like, okay, something, it's gonna happen. It's not like we are afraid of, like, I knew that he would hold me up, I would never like be on the floor, but just keeping the movement, the entire capacity of the movement, and make all the transitions looking like smooth and in a continuous way. I think there was like the point. Oh my God, my hair. I'm sorry. That was the point that we are interested in working on. So it was really good. We got to know each other like super quick. So it was kind of better for all the process. And we had the test. So we knew what we want to translate. So we are like, okay, we have to connect each other, but like still have to. We already have like the path. We just have to give the hands and work together.
Yeah, thank you guys. It was important for both dancers to feel vulnerable with each other as we're talking in the improvisation process, where you don't know what's going to happen next, right? You don't have a set choreography. I'm there, I'm guiding, and I'm giving points, specific points that need to be hit, but the transitions and the in-between, and it's one of the ways that I prefer to work, but I also think for this particular project, and the story of migration, it's always like the improvisation of life, right? Like we don't know what's going to happen. And so there are moments where the dance is perhaps a little bit precarious, and hoping that you feel that sense in terms of the larger narrative. Nate, or Victoria dips Nate. That is something for somebody as Nate, a man of his like stature in dance, that doesn't normally happen, that the woman would then be in care of him. Sometimes it happens, but that hasn't been Nate's experience as a dancer. And in this idea of the man having to leave, and the woman having to take over, if we want to think about it in very traditional gender roles and gender norms. I wanted Nate to feel uneasy, and Victoria to feel a little bit stronger in moments, and also alone in moments. So that's some of what you saw. Yeah. I also want to talk a little bit about the composition before we open it up to questions. It was really wonderful working with Giannis. One of the first conversations we had was, of course, I definitely hear the sea, but I hear the sea as rhythm, as like the rhythm of life, right? That exists for folks who are on the seashore as a life source, but sometimes the sea swells to give life, and sometimes it destroys. I also heard bells, and so you can hear bells in this piece. And also just there needs to be a little bit of consistency, but some chaos to move us forward. And Giannis found this really beautiful sample of a boat propeller or engine. Yeah, right? The engine. And so you hear like a tick, 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 tick. And that's the boat engine that is part of the soundscape. So the very thing that will move one person or migrants from one space to the next. Sometimes those boats have engines, sometimes they don't. Sometimes it's a fishing boat. But we wanted that as an undercurrent, as a rhythm for the piece. Yeah, so that's a little bit more about the sound. I want Giannis to speak more about it in depth. We'll pass him a mic. I'm going to stop here, and we can, open up for questions, and then maybe I'll say some more.
Yeah, I think we have about good 10 minutes for questions from the audience. Could we start with the heavy question?
Yeah, sure.
I'm just thinking about, as you're talking about love and loss in this piece and adapting text into a dance performance piece, Mr. Diop has an essay called Transforming Genocide into Art. And as you may know, he wrote a book about the Rwanda genocide. Of course, he's based in Senegal. You're from Haiti, in this kind of post-colonial francophone space. There's a lot of trauma coming through his work. And I'm wondering, in terms of your own adaptation as a composer, as a director, how you capture that trauma, but also convey joy, convey the embodied movement of the characters that we are focused in on on mass tragedy, but it is brought through the characters of brought through the perspective of specific characters. And also thinking about your work on Edwidge Danticat's text, your work based on the Tulsa Race Massacre, the survivors' testimonies, the children who lived through the massacre, and I Dream of Greenwood was based on those testimonies. And now today with this text, we're here in Oklahoma in a space that is, we're in Wichita and Caddo land. We have had not only the Tulsa Race Massacre, the Oklahoma City bombing. Rilla Askew and Angie DeBow and many other historians and writers have talked about just how much Oklahoma history is compressed, and we're kind of like the underbelly of the United States. And here, I'm just thinking about your being here and how that all kind of is filtered through your perception, through your creative work as a choreographer and director.
Sure. Thank you for that. What Daniel is perhaps stating is that my most recent body of work, has really been grappling with areas of trauma. Is that me? Maybe? Okay. Has been grappling with areas of trauma for Black people specifically in various different spaces, and that's actually been really difficult for me. I've been making jokes lately. I'm like, only whimsy, only works about whimsy lately. I was talking to my friend. I said, I would like to make work about whimsy, but I don't know that that's true. I think that sometimes what I've discovered in my practice is because I've lived through some trauma and know folks who have lived through trauma, when I approach the work, it's never one note. It's never about that, because so often that's what we see. And so for me, it's always about like the human experience, the human interaction that's beyond trauma. And so I do often focus on the relationships of my characters. And where there is loss, there is love, right? And there is the before. The before, that's why that stood out for me. The before is so important, because so often we think about the trauma, the during, or the after, right? The repercussions of what has happened to people, and we don't often think of like what existed before. And I thought about that in I Dream of Greenwood and also here. So as you see the couple, there are snapshots, there are photographs that are being taken in that work. They're sitting for a photograph to document the life just before the trauma. And so, yeah, it's complicated, but I always approach it from like, it's complex, the complexities of Blackness, of dealing with trauma as Black people in the world, and the fact that we, it's not always traumatic, right? Yeah.
Thank you so much, Marie. Just thinking about the Native American, African American, and European, kind of the collision of cultures in Oklahoma, how much of that is trauma, but there's also creativity in that, in the space that we inhabit here.
Right, yeah. Absolutely. It's a unique place where a lot of things have come about.
I found this absolutely stunning. It was beautiful and intense. And inevitably, you've probably been asked this already, would you consider seeing this as a kind of pilot jumping off place for something kind of feature length? I mean, it's so beautiful. I just wanted more at the end. Is it possible that this could be the seed of a larger project?
Well, I will tell you. Yes, because I don't know about feature length, but I know for me, I said to Daniel, I was like, Daniel, this is what was due. I'm giving you all what was finished, but there's so much that we wanted to do. There's so much story there. And also, I originally the concept was 4 dancers. So I had cast 4 dancers for this piece. And because of schedules, the 2 other dancers couldn't make it. So we had intersecting lives happening, right? Because I think the story of migration is this big diaspora story that is, right? It's a global crisis in West Africa, but also where I'm from, like in Haiti and in Mexico. And so I just think that there's a larger story to tell. So I think this is the beginning of something. I'd also like to go to Senegal, someone. Send me.
Boris, would you invite Marie to Senegal? Okay.
I'd
All right.
it has always been a place I wanted to go since I was a young child, and so I feel like a kinship. What's that? Yeah, a kinship. There's like I feel like my people are probably from, for sure.
And even thinking about the black and blues of the title, the blues as a West African genre in many ways. I think it's really rich resonance. Maybe I have time for 1 or 2 more questions.
Well, I agree with RC. It was too short. It was beautifully done. You all did an amazing job. I'm curious, did you have a variety of texts that you had to choose from? And did you choose this one because of what you said earlier about memory and loss? And the other thing is this your first film? Because there was a lot of editing. It's very different than the Danticott, where it was a continuous, story told on stage. So I'm curious what that was like as a film to edit with music as opposed to an onstage production.
Sure. This is my 3rd film. I worked on I Dream of Greenwood for World Lit Today last year. I was lucky to work with a wonderful DP and editor, and also a good friend of mine, Jessica Ray, who's also a dance filmmaker. She's a dancer and a dance filmmaker, so I was able to bring her in. And film is collaborative. It's not, maybe initially when even my choreographic process is collaborative, like we did it together. And so I feel like I learn with each project, and then I learn from the other people that I'm working with. I forgot the first part of your question, but maybe that. Oh, about the text. No, Daniel, I think you just sent me this one, right? Did you send me more than one?
No, I think it was just this one.
I think it was this one, and I called you, and I said, Daniel, I close my eyes, I see blue glass, I hear water, I hear bells, maybe. I just started telling him what I was hearing and seeing, and that was it.
Thank you so much. Dr. Guy?
Hi. We'll take you to Senegal when you're ready. My question is about bodies. This was very short, but we could see the body as center, bodies as vessels, bodies as site of trauma, but at the same time, bodies as also resilience, especially within the African and African diaspora context in terms of immigration. I couldn't help but see Janet Winston's written on the body, but at the same time, Edwidge Danticat's the immigrant artists at work create dangerously. So how do you reconcile these notions of sounds, these notions of displacement, and this notion of the Black body as the site, but also as the vessel for all of these amalgamations?
Thank you. That's one of my favorite pieces, Create Dangerously. I think it holds, like our bodies hold a lot and can mean a lot. And so anytime I make a film or even make a work, it begins with text and it begins with my memory and my work, but it also lies with the dancers, the performers. And so we have intimate conversations about their sense memories and like what their bodies hold. And again, I keep bringing up like this vulnerability. You know, I said, Nate, when do you feel vulnerable, most vulnerable? And I think you said every day, because I'm a black man, you know? And so that's what Nate had to work with, right? And with Victoria, we talked about like the distance. Victoria is originally from Brazil, right? She's a student studying here. And so that separation between her family, right, who's in another country. So it's like, I guess what I'm trying to say is it doesn't just come from me, it comes from the performer as well. And we, in terms of like reconciling all of the different things and variousness of blackness, I welcome it all into the room. Everything is welcome. And sense memory is really, really important. Whether that be like, I always say like, is it my memory or is it my ancestors' memory, right? And so there's ancestral work in this film, which is why it feels really personal. Giannis, do you want to talk about sound really quick? Because there was a question about sound. Yeah, just if you could talk about,
2 minutes?
yeah, just
Okay,
really
okay.
quick. So Giannis.
What was the question, sorry?
Well, okay, I'm gonna like pivot a little bit, but using the question. So Giannis is from Corfu.
Corfu, Greece.
Corfu,
yes.
Greece, and he has in like relationship has seen migrants, right, in Corfu, Greece, and so in terms of like, you know, when we talked about like sound and marketplace, if you want to just talk a little bit.
Sure, yeah, the first question I had with Marie. Go ahead.
If I could just make a quick program note here, my apologies, Johannes, but if we could put the QR code up on the screen, Pat, and get folks to have a chance to fill out the survey as we're hearing these closing comments,
Yeah.
I'd really appreciate it. There's also the paper surveys that were distributed as you came in. If you don't have one of those, just raise your hand. We'll make sure you get one. And as Johannes and Marie make maybe some closing comments, we'll have that opportunity as well. Pat, are you able to pull that up? It should be the preview program on my Apple. There it is. That's it. Thank you so much, Johannes.
Stand up, or I'm good here. So the difficulty in this particular project, as opposed to Greenwood that we did last year, was that we deal a lot with social memory. We deal a lot with cultural things that we were not sure how to approach. The first question I asked Marie was, okay, we're talking about immigrants. Is it just African or is it Middle Eastern as well? Because lots of people are trying to cross from Greece into Italy and parts of Europe. We had to restrict the possibilities here so I can narrow down the sound field as well, what sounds we're going to use, how we're going to use them. And someone mentioned something about duration. Part of the thing that is very appealing here and you want more, it's because we had to narrow down everything we did, like the boat, the sounds, seashore, just a few phrases of the text, not a lot. So we can do quality work. I know people want more, but like we really had like a minimum amount of time to put things together. So there's a desire for a next thing, but also like logistically speaking, we have a team of 6, 7 people that we have to coordinate and move fast and make something happen. So yes, if there is a budget, we can definitely do something more, but for now, I think that was a very good challenge for us. The music here, the challenge for me was like to support the movie without overpowering. Like last year's movie about Greenwood, the music really was driving things. My challenge this year was to be just supportive, leave the dancers and the cinematography guide, but give you enough info so you can make the story in your head instead of me guiding you through music. I think that was the most challenging part. And then the rhythm, you'll see if you hear the video again, there's a lot of sea splashing that creates rhythm, the boat. and then African drumming. So I did a lot of editing, so all of the sounds match in speed and pitch. So yeah, I can transition from one to another without you noticing. But if you pay attention, these are actually different sounds. You just transition smoothly to another. So there's some narration through sound as well. We had a lot of discussion with Maria about that. They helped a lot. I know we're running out of time. I'll be more than glad to ask any questions if you want afterwards, but I think we have to close here, right? Thank you.
Thanks, Giannis.
Thank you, Ioannis. I will just ask you to, if you're filling out a paper survey or the QR code survey, please turn those in before you leave today so we can get those compiled and back to the Arts Council. Marie, would you like to offer any final comments?
Thanks. Thank you, everybody, for coming. We really appreciate it. And I'm so grateful, again, to Mr. Diop for allowing us to interpret the work. Again, we didn't recreate the work, but we were inspired by what we read. And for me, it's the art is wonderful, right? I'm an artist, and so it fills my cup to work on projects that are so meaningful to myself and to my community. But I hope we can just continue the conversation about Black and brown people who are migrating, and the fact that this is a time of migration crisis, and like, what do we do? How do we support people moving forward? And how are we honest about like what's happening, even if we're looking at love stories, right? Even if we're looking at the whole human, how are we honest about the crisis, and like, what is our part? What's our part in like sharing the word?
Thank you, Marie. Thank you, Nate, Victoria. Really beautiful work. Ioannis as well, and to all the creative team, that was really incredible. We'll take about a 10 minutes break here before we start our event at 1 o'clock. So at the top of the hour, we'll come back in for a panel on reclaiming Africa. And for now, please join me in thanking Marie and the rest of the team.